Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I am also a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over some of the traits that people have if they're very strategic. And a lot of you guys will fit this. The difficult part about being someone who's strategic, who is very self aware, is that sometimes you don't blend in. And so there will be two directions of this. There are people who don't blend in and they're confident in their own way. And there are people who are like that inwardly, like their internal compass always pushes them to a unique direction, but they doubt themselves. Or if they've had trauma, they believe that there's something wrong with them rather than accepting their authentic way. But people start to notice as they get to know you that you are strategic. And usually the first point is that you don't actually need immediate validation. Research in 2007 actually measured the need for approval, and I guess the need for social approval is a better way to put it. Approval of themselves and then social approval in groups. Some people who score low on this trait actually are less motivated by social acceptance. And some of you guys are actually like that. You are more strategic about how you perceive yourself, how you perceive others, as well as how you connect with other people. And you're less concerned about gaining approval from other people. This is a good trait, but a lot of people tell themselves it's a bad thing because you don't fit in as much. But this normally means that you're more authentic, you have more authentic personalities, and you focus on long-term gain rather than short-term gain. This, in my opinion, is a good trait. The next characteristic of those who are strategic are those who do not react emotionally to every situation, at least not right away. Research on dual processing, published in 2008, distinguished between fast automatic reactions and slower reflective processing. This is what I mean by strategic. This is the fundamental characteristic of those that are more strategic. People high in reflective thinking, they tend to gather information before responding. So that doesn't mean you never respond. It just means you take a little bit of time and gather information so that you can understand what the best response is. You tolerate uncertainty longer because you don't need to react right away to everything. You understand that uncertainty is part of a lot of processes in our world. The next one is you do delay judgment. Okay, so this one is really important because those who are very neurotic, and there's nothing wrong with being neurotic, a lot of times it comes from trauma. But if you want to heal being neurotic, if you're the other side of this, often you might see that your judgment towards other people is very, very quick. If you've had bad experiences with women, you might think all women are a certain way. If you've had bad experiences with men, you might see that all men are a certain way. And that is a good way to distinguish if, let's say, you are dating a lady and you notice that she's very judgmental incredibly quickly. This could be a sign that she's not very reflective in thinking and she might be a little bit more neurotic or she might need more social approval. So you can look at it from either way. The next one is actually you don't really have very quick reactions. In particular, the best way to put it in a very non-clinical fashion is a knee-jerk reaction, right? You see something and you don't really have those reactions. And a lot of people around you, especially if they're a little bit more emotionally dysregulated, might have those reactions. And you might think, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not reacting that way? And you might think, am I less emotional? Am I cold? Am I just not as engaged with my environment? Not necessarily. You are probably just more strategic and you might have more reflective thinking. As we've mentioned, research in 2008, and all research that is used is going to be in the description box as usual. So for summary for this one, those who don't react strongly to every emotion or they take time, they often appear calm, because their process is actually internal before expressing a response. And this is good. The next one is you actually observe before you speak. That doesn't mean you don't speak at all, but these individuals actually might appear less talkative to some people because they observe and listen before they speak, as well as they don't always speak when it feels unnecessary. Now, unnecessary is based on anybody's opinion, but most people who are in this category, they do perceive certain things to be a little unnecessary if they don't know a person. And it's like small talk is a good example. People who are strategic They are okay with small talk, but if they don't know a person, they're not going to engage in small talk typically for no reason at all. Usually it's perhaps to build relationships for networking later. Usually it's to have a goal. If you are talking to a girl, small talk, you're trying to get a gauge of if you're interested in moving forward with a more serious relationship with her. Usually it's not just to pass the time. Usually it's not to just look like you fit in. It's usually not those things. You do observe before you speak, and you also have intention behind when you're speaking, intentionality. The next one is very important, and it's really interesting because there is a distinct difference between these individuals. Those who are strategic, they're also strategic in dating. I mean, that sounds like that's obvious, but some people might not think of it like that. You're not just strategic in your emotions and basic social interactions. You're also strategic in a lot of social interactions as social psychology, so more group forming interactions, which in other words is a couple. You focus on attraction and long-term capability rather than just immediate attraction. Okay. Also, the reason why this is important is immediate attraction can sometimes be trauma. I'm going to give an example of a woman who has trauma, okay? So let's say we have a case of a woman who her father abandoned her. That's very unfortunate. That's a lot of trauma, as you can imagine. And so she's always looking to get that wound met. And so she's going to try and get a lot of men who are like her father. So let's say disinterested, detached, because her father seemed disinterested in her. That's why he's no longer in contact for this example, okay? And so she's always trying to reach out to very disinterested men who do not really like her or even find her attractive or want anything serious with her. But she's always very attached to that. To her, she thinks that's immediate attraction. But in actuality, if she had stopped and processed and maybe understood more about her trauma, she'd realize it's not attraction. It's the fact that she's trying to subconsciously meet that wound that happened when she was very, very little. If somebody like her father can like her, that means that her father maybe liked her too. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe he didn't mean it. Or it means that it's just her father. Other men like her father like her. So it's not her, it's her father. And this is obviously not healthy. This is why a lot of women tend to, let's say, date people who are absent, perhaps even abusive. And this is obviously just a educational video. But these are things that happen a lot. And we are trained about these things as therapists. And so this is something I'm very familiar with. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this in the dating pool. Some women like this. Those types of women tend to be more engaged in their immediate attraction. They're not very strategic. They're very emotion forward. And there's nothing wrong with being emotion forward, but it has to be balanced with logic as well as thinking about the future. And that is where those who are strategic come in. They focus on both attraction and long-term capability. You have no problem looking at a woman who you find attractive. Maybe she's even attractive intellectually, emotionally, but you're also looking at long-term capability. Is it somebody that is understandable of your lifestyle? Let's say you work in finance and you have a lot of business trips every now and again, networking trips. Is she going to be okay with that? If you are in the military, you might travel often. That is something, is she okay with doing? Maybe you work the second shift. Is she okay with accepting that? These are things you think about while engaging in this. You don't think about it later after you guys are already together, because that will create a lot of issues. You are aware of that process. You are strategic. The next one is very interesting, but I do notice this a lot. You build skills before work opportunities appear. You're always ready to elevate yourself regarding work, regardless of if you're actively looking for a job or not. So even while you're overall comfortable with your job, you're still building skills that may or not elevate you in this current job or move you to a more preferred or higher paying position. You are actively working on your skills. It can be social skills. Social skills is a very important one in a lot of these contexts, but it could also be developmental skills. It could also be any sort of skill that is used for your particular field or another field. Some patients that I have, they often build skills in a couple fields in case something happens with their particular field. Not everybody's like that, but it's something to keep in mind. And the last one is, you know when to not fight over something, or you know when this fight is not worth fighting. And in another way to look at it is you let pieces fall where they may. So some people are very set in their ways. You understand that that fight is just not worth having. You understand that it's not worth really explaining to them because it's already seeming like there's not much to hear. They could be in a completely different situation than you, but likely you could perceive them as maybe dysregulated, perceive them as very stuck in their very emotional stage where they're looking at only one angle. Rather than perhaps with you, you might be looking at your emotional angle, your logical angle, what you understand that you need to learn. And so you might be more open to that conversation than they are, which will just create a more difficult dynamic. And so you'd rather just not engage in that. So I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.